Hi, my name is Susan Pluff, and I would love to share with you my encounter with Jesus Christ, who is my personal Savior. I praise His precious name as He's always been in my life, guiding me and showing me that, in fact, He is very real. I had a dream about the world ending. I want to start telling you about this dream. And I really hope that it will help you and, make you regain more faith in Christ. I was about 12 years of age, I would say about 12. I'm going to start from the beginning. In those days, when I was a little girl, I'm 68 years of age. When I was small and went to church, our masses were done in Latin. I couldn't really understand what was being said unless it was translated for me. And in order for you to have the scriptures translated, or the Mass for that reason, you had to go to a priest and, ask what you weren't sure of, or what they were saying. It had to be through a priest. I was not allowed to read the Bible per se, because, in those days they felt that it was too complicated. It would be better to get counseling by a priest to explain whatever questions you had. So when I dreamt this dream, I want you to understand I did not know about the scriptures, nor did I ever read a Bible. Anyway, I went to sleep, and right away in my dream, I was just walking from school home. And I don't know, the wind picked up and it was getting very windy. And all of a sudden, the clouds in the sky, the earth went dark, like a terrible dark storm would approach us. When I looked, I thought that was odd. It kind of scared me, so I started to run home. But when I looked back up in the sky, I saw a crack in the clouds where it was very dark, and a ray of light shining through it. Which I thought was strange. But anyway, when it opened up more, the crack, I heard 3 trumpets sounding, one from each side of the earth. It seemed that way. One north, one south, one west. That's what it seemed like. Anyway, when the trumpets were sounding, there was a horse, a white horse coming down. And there was, I believe, Jesus on this horse. And I thought this was amazing. But yet it really scared me, because I really had a feeling that the earth was going to end. I didn't know about the scriptures, but I knew this meant, something was going to happen to the earth. Anyway, I started to run home. And when I went to go and run home, I noticed that the earth was shaking underneath me. And I took cover because, everything was affected. I mean, buildings were sunken in. Wires were hanging from the telephone poles exposed, and it was very, very dangerous because you could see the wires sparking. People were running. It was like chaos from one side of the street to the other, trying to take cover. And everything was being ruined, swallowed up. Buildings were collapsing, and it was terrible. I mean, it was so scary. Anyway, I kept running, and I noticed a church, and the church was packed. I was surprised it wasn't destroyed, but the church was packed. When I mean packed, people were literally hanging off the windows. They were trying to, I believe, go to confession so that they could, rectify themselves with Christ they wanted to be absolved from their sins. Anyway, this was amazing. So when I went past the church, there was a cemetery. And in that cemetery, I noticed that, of course, the ground was cracked open from the earthquake. But when I looked even more, there were coffins and caskets that were empty. And the people who died weren't there. Boy, I'll tell you, what an experience it was. And I want you to know that I was trying to wake myself up out of this dream, and I couldn't. So here I am running towards home, and I noticed that my house was in shambles. I could see the beam of my home, my family home, the beams through the roof, caved in. The living room, everything was abolished, was exposed. I was upset and calling my mom. I was calling my mom and trying to look for my family, and they weren't there. So I started to run back towards the city again, like towards the town, and I bumped into my grandmother, who has passed away. Her name was Nona Katarina, and I said to her, "What are you doing here, Nona?" And she reassured me that everything was going to be fine, but for me to be prepared, and that she was back because the world was ending, and for me to be close to Jesus. So then I went back uptown, and as I was going back, I was so overwhelmed. I passed out for a little while and then regained my consciousness to find that the whole world, the earth, was totally barren. What I mean by that, it was no more buildings left. There was nothing left. But there was a crack in the earth where there was a river of blood flowing in this crack. And I could see people trying to take boats or trying to get across from the left side to the right side. And today I believe that was people trying to go on the right side so that they could be saved rather than being on the wrong side of this river of blood. Anyway, anybody that tried to cross couldn't. So here, if you can visualize, the earth was separated in two parts. There was the good and the evil. And then looking further, there was a big hill at the end of the river, and a golden throne sitting on it. And this is where I believe God was there to place judgment or salvation, who many people were, in order to be able to go to heaven with God. But anyway, here we were in these lineups, and so I went to look for my parents, my mom. I did see my mom. I saw many people on that side, but it was time for people to be judged at that point. And so you could hear the voice of God. You could not see his face, but you could hear the voice of God as he was sitting on the throne. And when he raised from the throne, he stepped aside to say to the first person, sit on the throne of judgment. And this person, the first person I had seen to go sit on the throne of judgment, was a very crippled, poor, lame old man who had a cane and could hardly walk. And he said, he prayed, "Oh, Jesus, please save me. I believe in you. Please save me. Please forgive me my sins." And Jesus, and he was blind as well. Jesus, his light shined on this man's face. And all of a sudden I could hear this man saying, "Jesus, I can see. I can see you, Jesus. Oh, precious Jesus." And he said, "You will be with me today in heaven." And that was beautiful. And the next vision I had was a lady who was, I guess she was representing a harlot. And she said to God, he said, "Sit on the throne of judgment." And she said, "Oh, don't get so pushy. I don't have to." Anyway, he said, "Yes, sit on the throne of judgment." Okay, just stop getting so pushy. Well, she was not sorry for any of her sins, and she went to sit on the throne of judgment. And she totally burned as if she were in hell and deteriorated to a pyramid-shaped form of ashes on this throne. And you could hear the wind blowing these ashes across the barren earth. At this point in my dream, I was really frightened because it was going to be my chance to be judged. And I was really frightened. Anyway, at that point in my dream, it was so traumatic that I fell off of my bed. And at that point I was awake, and I wanted to know, did I make it? Did my mother make it? What happened? So I prayed. I knelt down and I prayed to the Lord, "Please, Lord, put me back into that dream. I want to know what happened." And so, strangely enough, I went back into bed, and right at the point where I had fallen off the bed, right at that point, I went right back into that dream. Only everybody had gone through the judgment, and I still didn't know what happened. So I was really afraid to be left behind on that barren earth. And I went to go and beg Jesus for his mercy and to tell me, whether I would be with him. And when I did, there was a man standing on a rock. And of course I knew it was Jesus, because I could see the holes in his wrists and his feet. And so I grabbed his feet and I said, "Please, Jesus, please, I'm begging you, take me with you. I'm sorry for being a sinner. I want to be saved by your grace. Please don't leave me here. Please take me with you." And he grabbed my face with his hand and he said, "O ye of little faith, do you not know how much I love you?" And I started to cry, and he said, "You will be with me in heaven as I raise you up with all of my children." And he did. At the end of that dream, I was being raised up. And it was just beautiful. Everybody was so happy to be going with the Lord to a place of paradise where he had promised a place for us. And that was the end of the dream. I did write everything down as a testimonial at that time. That was years ago. And my mom thought it would be very important for me to keep. And she did put it away, but to this day, it's being preserved. And I have to say that that dream changed me for the rest of my life. I really believe God reached out to me, and I believed He gave me salvation. And that's very important to know, that even though there are people out there that don't even know about scriptures, they don't know about God, that He loves us enough that He would reach out to you and He would in some way communicate with you to let you know He's there, He exists, He will save you. And your walk with Him is so important because He really does answer prayer. There have been situations where I've seen people possessed with the evil spirit. I've seen situations where all I had to do was pray and ask God to protect me and believe. And He would totally protect me. The person that was possessed would all of a sudden remain quiet, and everything would be at peace. That was the Lord. That was the Lord reaching down and answering prayer for me. He can answer prayer for you. So I really pray that all of you out there ask the Lord in your lives and experience the true, wonderful life you can have in your walk with Christ. Anyway, thanks for listening to me, and I pray for you, and I hope we'll all meet each other in heaven. Have a good day. Bye.